ghost, just the rain. I remember thinking it was trying to erase the city, battering the glass of my 14th floor apartment until the world outside was just a smear of black and grey. It was the kind of downpour that presses in on you, seals you into your own small space, making the silence between the thunder feel worse than the thunder itself. I was safe. I was dry. My apartment was my sanctuary, high above the streets. But sanctuaries are only safe if you don't leave the front door unlocked. And I didn't leave the door unlocked. I left my mind unlocked. It happened earlier that night. I was grabbing late-night cigarettes from the corner store. The rain had just started misting the streetlights into sickly yellow halos. That's when I saw him leaning against the damp brick wall of the alley, cloaked in shadows. He wasn't threatening, just still. He wore a coat that looked too thin for the weather, and his eyes, when he finally met mine, were unnervingly calm. I should have kept walking. It's what you learn. Don't talk to strangers after midnight, especially not the ones who look like they've been waiting for something specific. But he was quiet, and I, in my exhaustion, felt reckless. He asked me about the rain, then about the city, and then, slowly, about me. And I talked. I don't know why. Maybe it was the sudden intimacy of the sword, or the late hour. Maybe I was tired of carrying the weight. But I gave him the thing I had detected most fiercely, my deepest regret. Not a surface-level complaint, but the true vulnerability. The one thing that kept me up at night, spinning plans to keep my life from collapsing. I told him about the debt, about the specific catastrophic failure I had recently endured, and the paralyzing fear that followed it. I felt foolish, even as the words left my mouth, like I was offering a sacred, painful jewel to a random beggar. He didn't offer sympathy or advice. He just smiled, a thin, chilly movement of his lips, and he said very softly, "That must feel heavy, Rose. Soon you won't have to carry it all." Then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness and the intensifying downpour, leaving me standing there, shivering, suddenly realizing I had just shown a ghost-like stranger the exact location of my deepest weakness, a choke point in my defenses. I was home now, doors locked, chains secured. The lock felt fragile, meaningless. I kept pacing, the image of his eyes, calm, knowing, searing into my mind. I played the conversation back, sentence by careful sentence, feeling a sickness rise in my stomach. The immense guilt over my carelessness was now a creature squatting in the corner of the room. Why did I tell him? I kept asking myself. Why did I expose the one thing I hide from everyone? The apartment was cold, despite the heating, a profound, unnatural chill that had nothing to do with the outside temperature. I walked to the kitchen and put a kettle on, needing routine, needing noise. As I waited, a faint, musty odor drifted past, metallic like old pennies left in stagnant water. I dismissed it as the storm pushing exhaust up the air vents. The feeling of being washed, that insidious, prickly feeling, refused to leave. I started seeing things at the periphery of my vision, curtains twitching when the windows were closed, distorted shadows flickering in the dim light. I was tired. Maybe I was just stressed. Maybe the encounter had triggered some kind of somatic response to my underlying psychological was everywhere and nowhere. It was soft, but the sound cut through the roar of the rain with terrible clarity. I couldn't make out full sentences, only single specific words, and those words were the secret, the exact terms of my failure, the key word that described my deep-seated financial fear, repeated over and over, softly, mockingly, like a spiritual battle cry. It wasn't just a ghost, it was a targeted intelligence, using the vulnerability I had carelessly handed over to build its power. It was a manifestation of my own guilt, personalized and venomous. The slow dread ended. The thing was done with subtlety. I fumbled for my phone, trying to call anyone, to hear a human voice. My hands were slick with sweat, worlds shattered. The attack was kinetic, chaotic, impossible. The kitchen cabinet above the stove exploded outward, ceramic plates and heavy mugs flying like shrapnel against the wall and floor. Crack, smash, I screamed. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees in an instant, a freezing, crushing weight. I dropped the phone and scrambled toward the door, driven by pure instinct, fragmented, high-speed action. Run! The phone skidded away, the apartment listing to one side, objects floating momentarily before crashing. A powerful, unseen force slammed the hallway coat closet door shut with impossible violence, inches from my head. I stumbled, my feet catching on the splintered wood of the cabinet. I fell. The floor was concrete cold. I felt a tremendous, crushing weight settle onto my legs, dragging me backwards, away from the door, toward the darkest corner of the living room. It was like being caught in a spiritual undertow. Struggle, scrape. I fought, clawing at the thick carpet, screaming, not the high-pitched panic scream, but a raw animal bellow of desperation. Whispers were loud now, right next to my ear, repeating the terms of my specific debt, mocking my inability to escape this spiritual ruin. It knew my weakness. It was consuming my shame. The cold pressure intensified. I thrashed wildly, connecting with empty air, kicking against nothing. I felt an unimaginable pain, sharp, searing, focused on my forearm, like claws sinking into flesh. I yelled, trying to scramble forward again. The force lessened for a second, allowing me to drag myself free. Gasping, I stumbled, crawling to the safety of the wall, pressing my back against the plaster, watching the empty space where the thing had been. I lay there for minutes, maybe an hour. The only movement was the ragged rise and fall of my chest, the relentless, suffocating rhythm of the rain outside. The apartment was a wreck. Broken glass, shattered porcelain, the lingering scent of ozone, and something rotten. I looked down at my arm. 3 deep, raw lines of red scored my skin, bleeding freely, physical evidence of the violent, invisible attack. Profound silence that followed the chaos was infinitely worse. It was